meeting. The Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies, as you all know, is a center for research. It is the creation of the distinguished professorial fellow that we'll be having today. It is indeed a legacy that we are proud to be associated with. I would like to do some house cleaning before we commence at 11 o'clock on the dot, when the professorial fellow will present and he will have 50 minutes. But my clearing house today is to tell us, one, that there will be a presentation of certificates. You know, some of us have presented and we are yet to receive our certificate. So I have quite a lot here. So if you are in the Abuja area or your colleagues are in Abuja, you probably want to alert them to take the advantage of a social distancing handshake with the Vice Chancellor at 12 noon tomorrow. So we have quite a lot that we are yet to distribute. Okay, so please join us tomorrow in the Vice Chancellor's office. Is a privilege, and we are not taking it lightly. We appreciate him despite his very tight schedule to at least allow some of us to be formally presented this certificate of presentation. I should also mention that we are receiving submission of articles for the maiden International Journal of Migration and Global Studies. We have a success that the maiden edition will be out in late November or thereabout. We have received to date 6 revised papers that are willing to go through the test of scrutiny by our colleagues. So we are hopeful about that. We have 3 minutes, and I'll use the next 3 minutes to introduce the professorial fellow that is presenting today. I'm starting by showcasing his website. Indeed, I will encourage all of you to visit and learn, be mentored as to how to create your own website and create wealth for yourself until you pass on, maybe at the age of 130 that I aspire to reach on this glorious art. So we are starting by introducing him. And I'm entering his website. At exactly 11 o'clock, I will start. I will stop and I'll allow him to start his presentation. Our presenter today is the second professorial fellow at the center. You see, the center decided to elect distinguished senior professors, not baby professor like myself, but our teachers that have distinguished themselves. And we've had Professor Emeritus Sogolo. We're having Professor Abdalla Uba Adamu, indeed a double professor. And I will tell you more about it in a few minutes. And then we will be having the 3rd and 4th in November. But today's speaker is Professor Dr. Abdalla Uba Adamu, that holds double professorships in science education, 1997. Where was I in 1997? I think I was still at SOAS, University of London, trying to battle the Oyinbo and challenging them that I do not have to quote them or wait for my external examiner's book to come out before I defend. Of course, it cost me. So we'll talk about that at another date. So Professor Abdalla became science professor, science education professor in 1997. And in 2012, he was deemed fit too after peer review and subjecting all his body of knowledge, all his contribution to knowledge, appointed a professor of media and cultural communication at the Great Bayero University, Kano. That is a rare feat. Professor Abdalla has published extensively, and he has held several, awards. He was an African Senior Research Fulbright Fellow. He was a fellow at his alma mater. He has visited so many parts of the world, and he has contributed to knowledge. But more importantly, I should note that he is the creator of the Foundation for Hausa Performing Arts. He is an innovator, a creator, a distinguished scholar, and we are proud to have him speak to us, share knowledge. Prof, I'm going to unmute you. Or ask you to unmute. Okay, I'm asking you to unmute, sir, and you can unmute now. We would rather have you project, but if you want us to project, we can do that, sir. Do you want us to project your PowerPoint?
I will project unless we face a problem. I will project unless we face a problem.
All right, sir. At this point, I welcome Professor Abdalla Uba Adamu, Professorial Fellow, Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies, National Open University of Nigeria, to present his paper. Thank you very much, sir, for honoring us.
Can I have permission to share my screen, please?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Excuse me. I didn't know I have to do that. Share screen. I'll make you a co-host. Yeah, then you can share. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, fellow colleagues, everyone, and thank you very much, Professor Abikole Tijani, for giving me this opportunity. I hope the screen is sharing, right?
Yes, sir.
The screen is sharing, yeah. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Yeah, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share with you a few thoughts. I hope Antonia Yakubu is here and Laruba Obeji. Both of them are linguists, and therefore this is the area that they are very, very strong in. I approach it not from a linguistic perspective, but from an anthropological perspective. I'm looking at it from anthropology or dispersal of people, and from cultural studies perspective. That goes to show that we can approach any form of knowledge from any perspective, from any angle, not necessarily in a narrow door that knowledge is placed. I would also like to welcome Elder Professor Professor Sogolo, the old man of philosophy, and I hope he will ask some philosophical questions about this once we finish. And as you can see from the screen, my title is The Intangible Migrant, Language, Migration, and Identity. I focus on this purposely because I have spent years listening to people talk and learning about my own language, which ironically enough is Pulpulde. I'm a Fulani person, but I have not been able to speak the language at all. So I only speak Hausa language, and that shows for people like Abekule Tijani, the irony of historiography. What is very common and very well known is that the Fulani launched a jihad in northern Nigeria in 1804. And by 1807, they have conquered all the old kingdoms of northern Nigeria. And based on all that, I mean, based on historical facts, the Fulani now owned northern Nigeria. They took over the kingdoms. But then something happened. After years, they discovered that they are the ones who have been conquered. They are not the ones who conquered, but they are the ones who have been conquered. This is because the Fulani lost their language and they adopted the Hausa language. So we have reached a situation now whereby, except I think for Adamawa Not a single Fulani traditional ruler actually speaks Pulpulde language. They all lost it. And Shodan Hodio was claimed to have said that we conquered the Hausa with war, but they conquered us with language. And therefore, I look at language as a migrant, as the way it moves also, just like human beings, except that it's a very, very permanent migrant. And so I started by always arguing by understanding what migration is. And I specifically highlighted people. I said movement of people. But I'm introducing a new paradigm in migration studies by looking at objects, by looking at thoughts and ideas, and how all these objects, thoughts, ideas, migration, you're talking about actually people moving from one location to another. And it is permanent. When human beings migrated from Kenya in old Dubai, Georgia, and spread all over the world, the landmass, that is a permanent thing. You don't see them going back to Kenya again. So if you go to London and study, you're not a migrant, you're just simply a visitor. So long as you have a feeling that you have a homeland, you're going back to your homeland, then you're no longer a migrant. I mean, you are not a migrant. A migrant are those Italians and Irish, Russians, Jewish, and all those people who actually left their homeland forever without any intention of going back. This is what the literature accepts as a migrant. But for you to go to Texas, Baylor University, and stay there and even acquire American citizenship, and then eventually return back to Nigeria, you're not an immigrant. You may have an American citizenship, you may have an American passport, you may have a green card or blue card or yellow card or whatever it is, but you are still not a migrant because your fundamental allegiance and roots are back to where you came from, where your origin, your source. So that is why I distinguish between people as migrants and practices, behaviors as intangible migrants. So what then would you call a situation where people do not necessarily move, but their habits, expressions, and customs are adopted by people, whether migrant or hereditary? That's why I use the term intangible migrant. And at the end of this discussion, I even suggested also that we should think in terms of other intangible immigrants, like food. We all know jollof rice, we all love jollof rice, and we all think that jollof rice is our own. But jollof rice is not our own, it's from Gambia. And so what are other food items did we adopt from other cultures and other societies that we think are our own? I mean, is amala truly Yoruba, or is it something that they also saw from somewhere? And how do this conception of non-tangible objects move? Like, for instance, if you go to Brazil, there's a lot of vibrant Yoruba community. So what's the link between the Yoruba community in Brazil and the Yoruba community in Nigeria? Is it based on something that has happened years ago, or what? So we talk about intangibilities in terms of what is, but yet nevertheless has an origin somewhere, and it's all going back to where it came from. That is why it is a migrant. A migrant doesn't go back. A visitor goes back, but not a migrant. Okay, a migrant doesn't go back. He stays there permanently. So for immigration, both tangible and intangible is, as I argue, is a permanent process. It has to be for it to be true migration. You can't just simply say, I'm going to migrate to London, spend a few years, and then go migrate back to Nigeria. No, you cannot. That's not what migration is. You're a visitor, you are temporarily dislocated, you're an IDP, whatever you like to call yourself. You're a refugee, but not an immigrant. An immigrant is somebody who cuts off his roots completely. And that is why I use language as an example of an immigrant, because truly it is an immigrant, because once it left its fundamental roots, it doesn't go back to where it came from. So immigration is permanent, not temporary. They live one country and then move to another country, and it's cross-border. There has to be a clearly delineated border where you are saying, I'm leaving this country and now entering into another country. And this has been going on since the human race has started or formed human communities. Human beings never stay in one place. They keep moving from one place to another. It is only with the advent of civilization that we started creating borders and preventing people from coming in. But at one stage, we're still looking for people to move from one place to another. Like Canada, has always been asking people to move to Canada so that they can contribute to the society. Now, these are all tangible migrations, but what is not tangible is language migration, a process in which words, expressions, phrases leave their native spaces and acquire same or new permanent meaning in another locality. The meaning could be the same, or it could be different, but the fundamental root is the same from where it came from to the situation where it is used. And that is why I said that I will illustrate with a lot of examples to show how, particularly Hausa and English have been classified, or I classify them personally as intangible migrants. As migrant itself, language is often troubles with migrants where they establish roots and either lose it or acquire the language of their surroundings. Italians who move to the United States just lose the Italian language. The same thing was more or less with Chinese, but you discover that a lot of the Chinese who move to the United States, they form little China towns in like cities like New York and San Francisco, but they never lose the Chinese language. Why? Is it because of some fundamental attachment to the language? No matter how much they can call themselves Chinese American, they still attach themselves to the Chinese language. The same thing with Hausa language. Hausa doesn't, the Hausa people don't really lose their language wherever they go. You go to Shagamu near Ijebu Ode, where you have a lot of Hausa people there. They speak Yoruba because that's the way they can interact with people, but they never actually lose their language. So we have some communities that are very tenacious in retaining their language. The Chinese are one of them. The French also insist on retaining their language wherever they go. They rarely just give up that particular language. But there are cases where interchanges of words and expressions from one language to another are very, very frequent wherever the immigrants go. And now as it travels, it becomes domesticated. You find that the original word itself may be different from the one that the community is now using. I have quite a few examples of that, where you are told that a particular word belongs to a particular ethnic group or to a particular set of people. But yet the way the word is pronounced in its new environment is different from the way it was pronounced in its real environment. This is because it has gone through semantic expansion, lexical expansion, if you like, so that it is modified based on the accent and the ability of the people to be able to use it. Some of the words in Hausa language are found very difficult to translate to other languages, simply because of the glottal sounds that Hausa makes in some of the expressions like ka, ba, da. These are glottal sounds that are very difficult for other people to reproduce. Now, this is because over time, the Hausa have evolved their glottal system in order to be able to utter those hooks, characters, but not other languages. So my focus is on English and Hausa language as both immigrants that come in and immigrants that go out. I also look at how Hausa words can acquire a national outlook as Nigerianism. And I'll explain what all this means. So I looked at English language and see how English language is a hodgepodge, how it is a mishmash of various expressions from other languages. And then I also look at Hausa language and how Hausa language has exported as well as imported a lot of expressions. And about all these exportation and importation and acquisition, domestication, the issue is, what is your identity? What do you call yourself? If your identity is located specifically a language and your language is a hodgepodge of other expressions, then what are you? So do we now talk about identity of a person in terms of their language, in terms of their religion, in terms of their dressing? Or what are the other parameters of identity can we use? So I have some concepts that are called defining concepts, at least as I use them in this paper. The first one is idiolect, which is very specific phenomenon, or the speech variety of a linguistic system used by a particular individual. And it differs from a dialect, which is a version of the language spoken by a group of people, an intra-group referent. By inter-group referent, it means that this is something that is an in-group thing. And the children have their own idiolects, at least in Hausa language. I don't know about other cultures. I'm sure they do, where they speak in something called Zauranche, that they speak in such a way that only they understand. The same thing with the Hausa women. Hausa women also create their own idiolects when they want to exclude a third person. If two women are speaking, they can exclude a third person by using their own idiolects, which is their own in-group reference. So that is something that is only peculiar to them. In Hausa language, that is called Zauranche. You know, it's the kind of a speech pattern that is only recognized by an individual within a particular group or within a particular family. For instance, armed robbers can also use their own idiolect, which only they can understand within the practice of their armed robbery. But a perfect, much more reasonable example is prison. prisoners who live in prisons, who stay in prisons, create a whole series of vocabularies that are only peculiar to them. And for every item, they have a name for it. And this is in order to mask their language communication with other people. So we have done a lot of research on this and discovered that in prisons in northern Nigeria, prisoners use certain expressions, certain words that the wardens don't even understand. For instance, the wardens are called prison tigers. Okay, so the moment they are doing something and one of them shouts, "A tiger is coming," then they know that a prison warden is around the corner. So all these are idiolects, something that is specific to an individual or to a group. Then we have a sociolect, which is an expansion of an idiolect, a variety of language associated with a particular social group produced due to the effects of education, occupation, and social class, religion, etc. When you speak in a certain manner, in a certain way, then that becomes your sociolect. Like in London, for instance, people who live in the West End of London speak with a distinct Cockney accent, and that Cockney accent is a sociolect. But when you get out of that particular social group, you don't speak that particular with that accent, so it's no longer a sociolect. The late British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher used to speak in a particular sociolect, but then that is a low-class, working-class sociolect. And the advertising firm, Saatchi and Saatchi, had to sit down and teach her how to speak Queen's English. That is the way the Queen of England speaks in a very measured manner. So that's a sociolect. It's an in-group reference. Another concept that is very important to bear in mind is onomatopoeia. These are words created based on the sound of an object. This sounds like the sound, splat, crash, scatter, bang, whisper. These are not words. They don't exist as words. And it's the action that describes them. When you say you're whispering, you're actually, it's a verb form. You are actually whispering to someone, and that act of whispering also gives the name to the word. Crash. When you say crash, I mean they have crashed. So the sound of the crash is what gives the word. So when a word is created that sounds like something, it becomes onomatopoeic. Then Nigerianism. Nigerianism is what I call something that belongs to all of us, but belong to none. Yes, it may have started life as belonging to a particular group of people, but then eventually it becomes adopted on a regional or global basis as belonging to everyone. And to such an extent that if somebody is asked, you are using a particular expression, where did it come from? And the answer is, well, I have no idea. I don't know. I just pick it up. Before I go deep into all these examples, I'll just give a very quick example, which is not included, like wallahi. Wallahi, it means by God, and it's something that is used by Muslims to indicate the truthfulness of their statement. Wallahi, that means I swear by God that what I'm telling you is the truth. So it has become now a Nigerianism, whether Muslims or Christians, they still use it, wallahi, wallahi. They don't actually pronounce it as it should be. Muslims pronounce it as it should be, wallahi, But some of our colleagues down south, for instance, don't have a H in their lexicon, like Abekule Tijani will never say history, you say history, you remove the H. So in a case where you have a H coming up in a particular word, it becomes problematic to pronounce it as should be. So wallahi, instead of wallahi, there is a H in it. But in cases of places where they don't have a H, the H is automatically removed. But they don't know that they're even removing the H. Again, he doesn't say hotel, he says hotel, or his, then it is, so it becomes a little bit problematic, but it is Nigerianism. People just adopt it as something belonging to all and belonging to none, because nobody even knows where the expression comes from. Now, I use all this in order to distinguish neologism from my basic concept, which is a newly created word or expression. Google, for instance. Why don't you Google it? Means why don't you search for it? Well, let's have a webinar. Webinar means a seminar taken over the internet, just like this one. And webinar and teleseminar and all the others have been there for quite a while, since the days of video conferencing, but they only gained prominence as part of urban lexicon after the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. when it becomes virtually impossible for people to gather together, so they have to use internet technologies. So that neologism is not really part of my focus, but I don't want people to be thinking that neologism, idiolects, sociolects are exactly the same. They are not. Now let's look at border control. How do we even get there to begin with? Now, colonization, slavery, trade, and commerce has expanded the English lexicon. The British, having settled in many parts of the world, borrowed expressions. Whether they settled peacefully or whether they settled violently through conquest, they acquired a lot of expressions and they integrated them into their own language. So they domesticated them. So the Scandinavian, Celtic, German, Spanish, and Indian languages have all contributed to the construction of the English lexicon. And the English itself has also contributed to the lexicon of other languages. But because other languages are not as widely dispersed as the English language benefited more than other languages. Now, English is the third most heavily spoken language on the planet after Chinese and Spanish, than English. But the Chinese and the Spanish tend to be located in one place. And the reason why they are number one and number two is simply because of the sheer number. I mean, the Spanish in Europe and then the entire South American continent. There's a huge number of people, but not spread. English language is far much more widely spread than any other language. It's available in every community. It has been adopted by hundreds of countries as their official language. Like Nigeria, for instance, has a lot of languages, but decided just for peace to language of discourse. Now, the sources of these words, long accepted authentic English, rather the issue of the context of borrowing or intangible immigration. Now, there are two causalities for borrowing. Need, that is the internal pressure of borrowing, a new term for a concept in the language. So it's internal, something that forces you to bring it, to adopt a particular word because you don't have it in your own language. Like for instance, moto. Moto means a motor car, a motor vehicle. But this is something that does not exist within our own world. So we just simply say moto. In Hausa they say motor, that is my car. There is no way you can explain a motor except moto because that's it. You don't have anything that is equivalent to it. So there's a need for you to adopt that particular word simply because you don't have any alternative. You don't have any local varieties of it. Not only that, also computers. Now, when we started translation business over 20 years ago, the issue of the word computer came up. And for the houses, they wanted to use the expression Naura me kokolwa. Naura me kokolwa. That means an engine that has a brain. But Naura itself is not even Hausa, it's Arabic. So what is the Hausa word for computer? You just don't know, because there is nothing like computer within Hausa social discourse for us to be able to use it, nothing equivalent, nothing close to it. So based on need, we force people to accept the word computer. Just simply call it computer, just like call a motor vehicle motor. So there is no need to start wasting your time looking for an equivalent when you don't have that particular equivalent. So computer becomes just simply computer. The same thing with internet. Internet, they keep saying it's called Yanergizo. Yanergizo means spider's web. But it's ridiculous because a spider is a very hostile and lonely creature. It doesn't really intermingle with other. You don't see a group of spiders. You always see a spider alone. And a spider does not like society. It always hides. It makes its own nest or web somewhere high up so that you don't see it every day. So, but internet is on the other side. On the other hand, internet is about togetherness, about coming together. So you can't call it Yanergizo. So we also insist that people should just simply call it internet. So words are accepted based on a need. And secondly, words are also accepted based on prestige. It is better for you to accept a more prestigious language, something in English, rather than in a local language like Bole or some other language that people don't know. Because the prestigious language, it gives you a higher global visibility, and it is that global visibility that everybody is eager to key into. So prestige is an external cause where the language of a more powerful cultural space becomes sources for loans to other languages. We all adopt English because of prestige. The more you speak, we are now reversing all this. People are very proud to speak Pidgin, simply because that's the language of the community. That's a Nigerianism. Everybody in Nigeria speaks that particular language and understands it. So Greek, Latin, German, Russian, and English are frequent loan givers in history, depending on their socio-cultural and economic power of various periods. Their integration into other languages is therefore because of their prestige. English is also a frequent loan taker, and its integration of other languages, as well as integration by other languages, is because of need. So both prestigious requirements as well as need requirements are satisfied by the English language. Now, the fundamental principle of borrowing is that as soon as a new concept is introduced into the material or immaterial sphere of a speech community, then a designation for this new concept is needed. Either it is seen as indigent to that particular community or it's domesticated. And this designation may alter the original phonetics of the immigrant word, thus integrating it into the linguistic vocabulary of its new community, where people just simply don't know whether this new word exists or it does not. And a lot of people will find it very difficult to say whether this language is their own or not. Let me give you an illustration. The Hindi word panch means 5, okay? And it refers to the number of fruits used to make a drink of the same name. Something like 5 Alive in Nigerian marketing. You know, there's a drink called 5 Alive. So 5 Alive is made of 5 different fruits. And when you have such mixture of different fruits, at least 5 of them, the drink is called punch in India. But it became an English word for punch. You know, it's just simply a drink. But then that word also migrated from punch to an onomatopoeia, to hit somebody. That is to have an impact. I'm going to hit you with the punch. I'm going to punch you. So those 5 fruits are supposed to give you such a big buzz that you feel like punching somebody else. So from the word, from the food to the drink to the word to onomatopoeia, you see how just simple one word seems to have integrated itself into various aspects of public discourse. And of course, when we say Punch, it's a newspaper. Everybody knows a newspaper, but that newspaper was called Punch because the creators of the newspaper believe that they won't come up with something that will hit you in the belly, hit you in the face, news that will really hit you between the eyes. So again, you see the transition between one form of existence to another form of existence of the same word, but starting its life in India. Now let's look at some more examples. These are examples of the words that we have borrowed from India into English language. Jungle is jangar, okay? Those who watch Indian films will know that that's what they normally call jungle, jangar, which is a wild wasteland. And then dinghy, that is the small boat that you use to move between ships or just simply go around an area, is dinghiya. The same thing with pajamas that you wear every day. Most people wear their pajamas in order to sleep in their pajamas at night. Well, that word pajamas is not really an English word, it's an Indian word, and it is payajama. And this is how they pronounce it. And then juggernaut. Abekule Tijani is a juggernaut. Professor Sogolo is a juggernaut in philosophy. And yet it just means a giant carriage. And I don't think I would like to look at Professor Sogolo as a carriage. It's a huge carriage that carries a lot of things. But juggernaut means a giant with a lot of ideas in his head. That's the original meaning. But now juggernaut has been translated into something else. And then a thug. You know, this man a thug, a thief, okay? During the political campaigns, you hear a lot of thugs. Well, the actual word is thug, and it is Indian again. And then shampoo, which is shampoo. Now, you could see that in all cases, the Indian word has gone through some modification into the English word. It has been altered to adopt its new home, to new environment, both the spelling as well as the pronunciation. The English word loot, actually I reverse it, is loot. When you are looting something, but it's actually locked. And that loot, L-U-T, the Indian word, is also available in Arabic as lot. You know, and the English spelling of that is L-O-T, lot. That is the prophet lot. of Sodom and Gomorrah era. And then bungalow, everybody here, all the 64 of us would like to have a small bungalow. Well, whenever you say the word bungalow, you're not actually speaking English, you are speaking Indian, because bungalow is a one-story house, which is an Indian word. And they started, the actual word was bungalow. Spanish, Dutch, and German have also, and American Indian have also given us a lot of words in English language. Armada, marijuana. Now that is good to know that marijuana is not actually English, but Spanish. That's why they're always going off their heads, off their rocker, because they're always smoking weed and things like that. Alligator, armadillo, mosquito. Now mosquito, you will have thought that since we have a mosquito that bothers us a lot of the time, mosquito is an African word, but actually it is not, it's Spanish. So what do we call mosquito? We all have different languages, a name for it. Like in Hausa, it is called sauro. I don't know what it's called in Yoruba or in Igbo, but we have a name for it. But to truly globalize it, the Spanish have to use a word mosquito. And that word mosquito is because of the fact that West Africa was considered the white man's grave because of mosquito. That mosquito has really saved us. It's making our life hell and miserable, but we could have been slaves, just like South America have become slaves to the Spanish. When they came here, mosquitoes were biting them all over the place and giving them malaria, and they don't have any immunity for it, so they just simply left off. Oh, guitar. Guitar is also a Spanish word, and so on and so forth. The Dutch people have given us boobs, so they're always getting drunk. So that is why they come up with that word: landscape, onslaught, coleslaw, stockfish. Stockfish is oporoko in Igbo. At least when I lived in Imo State during my NYC, I had the privilege of eating oporoko. Dollar, which is funny, you will have thought that the dollar is an American thing, but there is actually nothing like American. America is a hodgepodge of different people from all parts of the world. So eventually they all agreed to adopt the dollar as their own currency expression. Splits, uproar, leak, smuggle, cruise, crate, and so on. The Germans have given us noodle. I mean, we all love noodle, but we thought it come from China. Yes, it might have been manufactured in China, but the actual word noodle is German. Lager beer, for those who drink alcohol, they know that Blitzkrieg, that in fact, Blitzkrieg even sounds German itself. It means absolute total destruction. Poodle is a dog. It's a small little dog. So it's, again, another German expression. Bomb, it means a wandering person, somebody who's just useless. But at the same time, bomb also means buttocks in another Americanism. But a bomb, generally speaking, is somebody who is vagrant, somebody who just keeps moving from one place to another aimlessly. Kindergarten naturally sounds very German itself. American Indians also provided us with squash, canoe, cannibal, tobacco, sugarcane, maize. You'll have thought that maize is an African, they got it from Africa, but actually they got it from American Indians because American Indians were also growing it. But Americans prefer to call it corn rather than maize. Potato, chocolate, and chili, lovely chili peppers. So all these words that you see are not English at all. They were borrowed or accepted into the English lexicon by other languages. They're all immigrants into the English language. And the question is, don't the English themselves have these words? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But like I told you, the criteria for adopting a particular word are either need or prestige. So maybe they don't have them whenever they came in contact with them. So they just simply adopted these words. Italian, French, Turkish, and Arabic have also given us a lot of words. Let me look at the Arabic one, where we tend to think that Arabic is a closed language. It is, in the sense that unless you can speak very fluent Arabic, it might be very difficult for you to survive in Arab world. They don't speak English at all, but they have donated a lot of words to the English vocabulary. Academic, demography, diplomacy, canary, philosophy. Hey, Professor Sogolo, philosophy is actually Greek, but from Arabic. Doctorate, all the doctorate degrees we have here in Arabs. Surrealism, physics, tuna, giraffe, cat, drama, folklore, mythology, these are all Arabic words. But when they started from Arabic initially, but by the time they moved as intangible migrant to other languages, they just simply changed their form. And that means that they have integrated into the vocabularies of their new homes, which I have always been advocating that an immigrant should domesticate themselves. They should integrate into the community. Turkish gave us a doodle, that is just simply aimless drawing. to beg, or kaptan, or kiosk, lucky, mammoth, shawarma, which is a sandwich, actually, a wrapped sandwich, with meat and bread. The French give us grenade. Ooh, that's very, very dangerous. Grenade, you just simply use that to destroy people. Bigotry, I mean, somebody who is just picks on his own particular idea. I hate Arabs, I hate Muslims, I hate Christians, I hate Hausa, I hate Yoruba. You are bigot. And that word is actually French, or clique, you know. Professor Sogolo and his philosophy clique, they're always together. They don't split up. They don't accept people from for instance, theology. Salon, bayonet, chassis, garage, and so on. So these are some of the ways in which other languages enrich the English language as a result of contact, as a result of trade, as a result of colonization. I come to Hausa intangible immigrants. Okay? Again, the fundamental arguments for intangible migrant applies both to English, to Hausa, to Yoruba, to all the other languages. I focus on Hausa because that's what I know. I would have loved to see intangible immigrants from a Yoruba perspective or from an Igbo perspective. The domestication itself moves through stages. The first one is what I call primary stage, which refers to the initial interface between in-group and target out-group. When the Hausa people move from one place to another, that is the primary stage. The secondary stage is when intangible migrant leaves the in-group and becomes domesticated by a third group, and so on. For instance, when the household move to Agegi, they remain within themselves, but through regular contact with their hosts, their words and expression escape from their in-group and become adopted by those who interact with them. That's exactly what happened between the Fulani and the Hausa. When the Fulani took over the Hausa land, they could not speak Hausa language. So they were forced to learn the language itself. Because the Hausa refused to abandon their language, and they refused to accept Fulani, and the Fulani did not have any way of teaching people their language. So having left its origin, whether it's an in-group or geographical location, qualifies the language as an intangible immigrant, because it may not be remembered from where it came from. There are some people that I talked to, they are Nufe, and I showed them some Hausa words that had Nupe origin, and they said they don't even know them as Nupe words. They only knew them as Hausa words. So that means that it's very possible for them to lose their identity. Idiolect, as I referred earlier, is an in-group expression, word belonging to a distinct group of users. It has meaning only within that group unless it is exported out by out-group members who also adopt it. For instance, those of you who know Kano or from Kano, there are very few of you here, but those of you who know Kano would know a junction called Tal Udu. Now, Tal Ud sounds Arabic because the way they even pronounce it, Tal Ud. So it seems like an Arabic expression, but actually it is derived from Kylo Woodrow, which is the company that constructed a road where they kept their machinery with all their names plastered on their machinery, on the machine that they used to construct the road. And Hausa people could not pronounce Kylo Woodrow, so they just simply call it Tal Ud, you know, and so that becomes a referent, an in-group referent for that. It's only a person from Kano who knows that Tal Udu refers to a company. But those outside Kano will just simply say, I go to Tal Udu Junction. Okay? So it has become adapted due to the inability of the residents to pronounce the name of the company, Tal Udro. So it's created based on a need, and it becomes onomatopoeic in the sense that Tal Ud means Tal Udro. You know, the high tone of wood there is what lends credibility to it. The House of Northern Nigeria referred to the Igbos as Inyamure. Inyamure, the community idiolect does not translate Igbo as the Hausa term for the Yoruba, which is Yarabawa. The Hausa called Yoruba Yarabawa, okay? But Inyamuri is a corrupted form of Igbo expression, Wetemiri, which means bring me water. So you could see now a combination of idiolect and onomatopoeia. The Hausa use miri, that is water, it's Nyamuri, and that created even a lexical expansion because Nyamuri is plural for Igbos. Nyamura is a female Igbo. So even within a constructed expression, they create lexical expansions as well as grammatical rules for something that does not even exist. So that shows the dynamism of language. So it became lexical expression in the north, Wherever you go in the north and say this person is in Nyamuri, they don't even use the term Igbo. They only use the term in Nyamuri to indicate an Igbo person. And this became much more popular during the Biafran War when it became Yaking in Nyamuri. That is the fight for Igbos. So that's just an example of how an expression from a language is now created onomatopoeically as a new word. Adoptable words, if you like, intangible migrants, make sense only if they are reference to something that does not exist in the target outgroup, which leads to domestication, but with the same meaning, albeit different pronunciation or spelling from the primary in-group source. Again, this goes back to my criteria for intangible migration: need and prestige. Now, intangible migrant also refers to movement of idiolects constructed as a set of abstract phonetic sentences, spoken rather than written or signed. Like I said, Inyamuri and Inyamure, as you have seen. It became in Nigerianism, at least regional Nigerianism. Another one that I find very amusing is Aboki. Aboki is a Nigerianism. Aboki means friend in Hausa language. But some southern Nigerians use the word Aboki to refer to northerners, not just to Hausa, but to northerners, not knowing that in the north, there are a lot of people who speak different languages, hundreds and hundreds of them actually. Yobe alone has over 10 different languages. So, but when you say Aboki, you are referring to, in a derogative term, just like nigger is used in America to refer to Black people. Aboki is seen as somebody just simply a northerner. But Aboki means a friend. And when you call a northerner Aboki, you're not actually insulting him. You are glorifying him, because it's only a friend, somebody that you like, you can call a friend. If you don't like a person, you don't call him a friend. But Aboki has become Nigerianism as a reference for any northerner. Anybody above the river Niger is na Aboki. Don't mind them na Aboki. But Aboki is not an insult, at least to the Hausa. It is just simply mean friend. The same thing with Suya. Suya in Hausa language means to fry in oil, deep frying in oil. But Nigerianism takes it as roasted. Anything that is roasted, like the meat that you buy from the Hausa people at Obalende or something like that, you call it suya, but that's not suya. Suya is a fried meat. But roasted meat and grilled meat is called sire. That is in the Hausa language. But suya has become Nigerianism. So that regardless of your tribe, regardless of your language, when you say suya, you are referring to a roasted meat. But the Hausa know that suya is not a roasted meat. They have a name for it. But because Nigerians accepted suya as a roasted meat, some entrepreneurs in Hausa societies capitalize on this and then start marketing their product as suya. So you have Yahuda Suya Support, which I'm sure is very familiar with many of you. If you look at it very carefully, none of these meats are actually being fried. They are grilled, okay? So grilled meat, roasted meat, this is what it's called suya, but it's not actually suya. It's geshi, they call it geshi. So it's not suya, but everybody just accepts suya as any meat that the Hausa produce. But suya is referring to the meat that has been deeply fried, particularly during the Salah. And the non-Hausa call that meat nama, but nama is a generic term for meat. Any kind of meat is called nama. But nama does not really refer only to the meat that has been fried during the Eid al-Huda festival. It just simply means meat. It's a generic term for meat. So there are more Hausa Nigerianisms that are words that have become adopted by Nigerians. And I have given an example. Let's start with wahala. Wahala means trouble. That's exactly what it is in Hausa language, but it has become a Nigerian expression. So it's truly a Nigerian word, because people like Professor Sogolo, who speak excellent English, standard English, I know standard English, will not use it in their sentence construction, but they pidgin English use it very, very fluently. Same thing with Wayo, and then that creates sociolect, because now all Nigerians use those expressions. So let's take a quick look at them. Nigerian standard English is not a trustworthy person. In English, in Pidgin, we say, "Na wayo man abeg, forget him." Or he's too clever by half, or he has too much wayo. But the Hausa also have another expression for wayo. Ang haipen na Sokoto amanai wayo a Lagos, which means I was born in Sokoto, but I grew up in Lagos. So wayo means also growing up, rites of passage. You could also say yaro ne shi bashi da wayo. He's a child. He's not wise. So wayo also means being wise, being aware of yourself. Oh, he's a villager, he's from a village, he's a simpleton, he's not clever. So as you could see, the word wayo has become a Nigerianism, but also has created a sub-social lect in the sense that it has varieties of other meanings in Hausa language, which is when it becomes an in-group, but when it is an out-group word, then it acquires its Nigerianism. A perfect example of illustration in popular culture is Fela Kuti Army Arrangement. I will just suggest you listen to that word, that song again, and you could see the places where he used Dabaru, which means Lebanese. Them Dabaru, everybody. Give me money, put them together, Army Arrangement. Wayo, wayo, put them together again, wayo, wayo, because it's about corruption. So they're just simply deceiving us. So it is a political statement, but he's using expressions from another language in order to convey this. And everybody in Nigeria understands, wayo, 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 I don't like them. Okay? Rigima, it means to seek to fight in this context. But actually, rigima means inventiveness, and so on. And Yanga, and Yanga is always associated with women. Why should they do Yanga now? Because she's beautiful. Okay? But Yanga means wasting, taking too long to do something. I'm not going to give me Yanga, I beg. Something with Chua Chua. People think that Chua Chua means to do something bad, but it actually means gathering. If there is an accident and people gather together in order to look at what is going on, that gathering of people is called Chua Chua. It doesn't mean that you do something underhand. But then that Chua Chua also now became modified to Uru, Mago Mago, Gada Gada, Muna Muna, all to indicate something that is going on bad. Okay, we need to do Uru here, we need to do illegality, we need to do Chua Chua. I bet you not give me Chua Chua. Now you are Chua Chua be that. Chua Chua just simply means people gathering together to look at something, voting at an accident or something like that. That's Chua Chua. A whoop is also another house word that has become a Nigerian word. A whoop ni Benjobu. That is something that is bad or free of charge. Benjobu means from Ijobu Ode, so that means low quality in the north. Simply because apparently the household who live close to Ijobu Ode in Shagamu buy items that are cheap and then take them to the north. And then people say, no, this is Danjobuni. That is, it is from Ijobu or to speak. Oga is a Yoruba word, although some people contested that. But as far as the English Oxford Dictionary is concerned, Oga is a Yoruba word. And you could use it, for instance, to say she's the real Oga at the top. She's the master. It means you're now my Oga. You know, say you are my Oga now. You are my a master. Bola Kaja, get down and let's fight. But it has now become an expression for something that is bad. For instance, this one Bola Kaja writer, now Bola Kaja publication. I been give us Bola Kaja publication. It has become Nigerianism. And that is why Chungwezu and all the others gather together and form themselves into Bola Kaja intellectuals. Okay, so while the Hausa language provided idiolect and sociolect variants of its words to other Nigerians, it also absorbed quite a few. 40% of Hausa language is actually Arabic, okay? And these are some of the words in which the Hausa have domesticated. These words will not make much sense to you if you are not a Hausa speaker or you don't know Hausa much language, but that's basically what it is all about. These are Kanuri. They have also given us a lot of words like Kaswa means market, but it's not a Hausa word, it's Kanuri word. Those who speak a little bit of Hausa will be able to be shocked to know that some of these words are not actually Hausa, but they are also from other languages. The Yoruba have also given Hausa quite a few words, like Paki or Kwaki, Wingari to the north, or Panu, means Kwanu. So you could see the onomatopoeic relationship between Panu and Kwanu. The Hausa don't have a P in their language, just like most of the Yoruba don't have a H, or at least those from a particular dialect don't have a H. They omit the H. The same thing with the Hausa, they omit the P. So it becomes Kwanu. Agogo is a watch. Gele, the head covering for female. Dokita, which the Yoruba call Likita, which the Hausa also adopted as Likita, as a doctor. So, ladies and gentlemen and fellow colleagues, my conclusion is that in this paper, I argue that migration is really about long-term exit of people from one location to another. However, I focus on what I call intangible migration, specifically of words that jump from their native abodes and move to other linguistic clusters. I started the English language as a hodgepodge of linguistic borrowings from various close contact groups in the English encountered. I went through to the Hausa language and provided examples of its idiolect and sociolect as Nigerianism that is adopted on a national level, leaving the original intact, although it often has its own sociolect. I finally showed that the Hausa language itself, like English, is a hodgepodge of linguistic influences, principally from Arabic. This brings us to the issue of language and identity. Where does the specific gravity exist that defines a person's life? The language they speak, or from where they come from? Oh, well, English people, are we all English people because we speak English? Or do we have another identity besides simply speaking a particular language? I mean, I speak English, you speak English. Does that make us English language, or do we have another identity? What are other intangible immigrants can we dissect? Food, jollof rice is from Gambia. Clothing, jalabia is from Egypt. Suit is from Turkey. So what else travels with people and becomes adopted in other languages? So this is my brief discourse on intangible immigrants. I would like to thank you very much for being here, and I look forward to all the questions that people will ask. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I could see Dr. Seidu clapping. Please, Dr. Seidu, kindly call me after this session. I need to talk to you. Dr. Rosemary Seidu. I have one hand up. There is one Blessing Alabi. So I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. I think I can see Dr. Seidu raising up her hand, although I want you to use the Emicon. So Mrs. Alabi or Dr. Alabi, you have the floor, please.
Good morning, sirs. Good morning, Professor Abdalla Adamu. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for the presentation. It's such an expository one. A lot of concepts and things have been, corrected. But the question I would love to ask, sir, is there a possibility of correcting, the misconceptions over time, especially, referring to the Hausa word, South, in the North, for one reason or the other. And, generations have come over and over, and we have taken it to mean something else than what you have, presented to us today. Is there a possibility of correcting these misconceptions, and how effective will it be? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Alabi. By the way, Mrs. Alabi is the assistant registrar posted to the center. So thank you for that question. I have Dr. Rosemary Saidu. I have you. If you are ready, you can go. Then followed by Professor Emeritus Sogolo. I ask you to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much.
After Professor Sogolo, we will have Dr. Emina Williams, and I'll be scouting around for others. I think I have Lami Yaro. Okay, in that order, so please just follow, okay? I will mute all of you.
Good morning. Go ahead, please. Good morning, House. Good morning, my Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sogolo, and the Chairman, and others. In fact, our Vice Chancellor needs a standing ovation for this wonderful presentation. He's really an authority. You can see from even the PowerPoint, this is a pace setter. In fact, he has said we need to give him a standing ovation.
Thank you.
I wish every academic staff created time to attend this presentation. He has set a very wonderful pace for us. In fact, COVID-19 is a blessing in disguise because he has been very busy. If not for COVID-19, he will not give us this wonderful presentation. This is my observation. Aside that, sir, he is a professor of science education. That was his first calling. It's unfortunate that he has not been identified with us in Faculty of Education. He has so much been identified with social sciences. We are so missing him, and now he's going away. He needs to really give us, we want him to give us something in education. Those who miss this presentation, they have missed something they can never get in life. Aside that,
thank you very much.
Concerning all these words, like he opened, he widened my horizon. He has really widened our horizons. Look at these differences, these names. Like now, I'm a violinist. I play violin. In Italian language, it's violin. But in French, it's garage. In Turkish, it's shawarma. How can we reconcile all these differences? Professor Uba Adamu Abdalla, our wonderful VC. Oh, I wish you are not going so soon. But why did you wait till when you're almost off that you are giving us all these things? We thank you very much. I, for one, I appreciate you. Thank you for giving us this center of excellence where we can see ourselves, we can express ourselves. And I want to tell you, I grew up in the North. I am more of an announcer, okay? I speak Yoruba too very well, but my behavior is more of Hausa. Hausas are plain. They are just like that. That's how we see. Generous, open, so from the closed system, it came into the university. We can walk into your office. We commend you, sir. I appreciate you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm already missing you. And
Thank you.
I wish you extend your stay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What a way to celebrate even Nigeria's 60th independence. You know, he has talked to us about Nigerianism the way we've never thought about it. When I read the paper yesterday, and we did some, I have to confess to him that I never knew that Wahala is an Hausa word. And I also shared my own family history. That for some of us, it will be shocking when you say you are going to the mosque and you don't see me going with you. And I'll be, because I went to Christian schools, you know, we took Hausa names because of the migrant Hausa that temporarily settled in our family compound in Lagos Island, a compound surrounded by churches, from Methodist to St. Paul to Cathedral to, so I grew up, you know, cleaning the cathedral for Baba Yakubu Gowon, and along with others. But we took Muslim name, but we never followed. I don't know why, but again, we thank you, sir. I joined Dr. Saidu, and I think I will call the Dean of FSS, because I could see her also noting, followed by Baba Sogolo, and the rest of it. The reason is that Dr. Saidu said something, and you know, I think she has her own comment too. Dr. Uthman, additional.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. And it's still good morning. It's still good morning. Yes, I want to join others in congratulating my Vice Chancellor. I'm surprised actually when I saw the poster and I saw Bio University. I was like, he has not left us yet. So we still retain that name, National Open University of Nigeria. It still belongs to Faculty of Social Sciences. I love the concept of tangible migration, because I've never even heard about it. That's what I'm picking up from here. Congratulations, my Vice Chancellor and my professor. Thank you, sir. And well done to our dear Professor Tijani too. We are proud of all of you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Baba Sogolo, please, you have the floor, sir. Professor Sogolo.
Yes. I hope you are hearing me.
Yes, sir. We're hearing you from Transcorp,
okay.
Sir.
All right. Yeah, I'm in Transcorp attending a meeting of TED Fund, but I just had to make sure that I listen to Professor Abdalla Uba Adamu. I've always told him, this man is trying to hide himself, but it's now obvious that he can no longer hide. I want to congratulate him. He's my colleague as a fellow professorial fellow. And but I want to tell you one secret. This is the man who brought philosophy to the National Open University. But at every point, he will tell you that ideas in philosophy belong to dead people. He will tell you philosophy has no relevance and everything. But yet, he is a philosopher. And I will show you why he's a philosopher. Apart from approving philosophy, encouraging us with philosophy now, there was this recent, we're doing this training, setting up a virtual learning environment. And I was trying to look into materials in philosophy. And what did I get? I got a text from him. He sent me material on the relevance of philosophy. And you can't believe it. This material helped me in building my virtual learning environment. And I built in the content of what he sent me, 4 ways of, recognizing the relevance of philosophy. So that is what he is. And I told him he's a genius. He goes faster than himself. Small as he is, his brain is large. And so when he has a large brain, and when he keeps saying that he's going away, and I said no, that we in philosophy are bringing him back as a visiting professor of philosophy, because that's where he belonged. This whole thing about language, he has gone into various things and so forth, and you see him moving, and this is what the philosophers of language do. So he's at a higher level, what we call the second order approach to the subject. It's no longer a linguist. It's no longer just a speaker of Hausa and English, but it's moving to a higher level of analysis. And so he is definitely one of those people you will recognize in philosophy. But I want to go a little into the context of what he has said. Now, this, I think, poses some problem. When you define immigration as permanent, what it means is that you will always get to the end of an immigrant's stay before you define it. Suppose an immigrant intends to stay permanently, and he goes, and for some reason, his stay is terminated, all right? He's deported, or for one reason and so forth. Will you still refer to him as an immigrant, or he becomes something else? Because there are cases like that where people really intend or go in with good intention to stay in a country or outside, a country to which they migrate, and then of course something happens, and they are thrown out. So do we redefine that? That is one of my questions. The other point which he referred to, and I don't think he's correct in this, by saying that philosophy etymologically derived from an Arabic word. I do not believe so. He said initially that it was Greek, which is true, because philosophy derived from philo, love, and then of course Sophia, wisdom. So philosophy, when you conjoin the two, becomes the love of wisdom, and the philosopher a lover of wisdom. Now, if that was Arabic, this man knows a lot. There are things he has taught me a lot of things. He perhaps knows more about the etymology of this concept, so I must concede to that. What I'm saying is what I was taught in the 1960s to 70s. Now, I want to say that, you see, I've looked at this whole thing and said there was some aspect which you ought to have brought in, apart from talking about the, what you call idiolects, apart from the idiolects and the words in Hausa, or in other languages, which we have become Nigerianized. I thought he would talk about the Nigerian language in terms of English. For instance, there are a lot of expressions we have in Nigeria here. When I was in the UK and I was doing my PhD, so I told my professor that I came in here yesterday and you were not on seat. And he laughed. He said, "You are not on seat, it's not English." I said, "It is." I said, No, that's a Nigerian language. And I really found out that it wasn't a common expression in English. Now, also, I wrote a paper, I wrote something for him, and I used the word, "You can't eat your cake and have it." And he canceled it and said, "You can't have your cake and eat it," which did not make sense in the ordinary way, but it turned out to be the correct expression. Right? And I was surprised because in Nigeria, we used to say, "You can't eat your cake and have it." And we all thought that was the sense, the easiest thing to do. So we all have all these, different, what we call Nigerianized interpretation of language. And I thought that he would have mentioned some of this. But at the end of everything, we continue to learn from this man. And so he's not going anywhere. is coming back to now. And he can no longer hide himself because we have found out whom he is. When he talks, you learn. That is Professor Abdalla Uba Adamu. I congratulate you.
Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate you. I believe the professorial fellow is taking note. I will give opportunity to two people. They have constantly and continuously joined us. They are from, one is from Unilag and the other one is from LASU. I've unmute or asked both Dr. Olayinka Kudus Amuni, an associate professor of Arabic language and global studies at LASU, to speak. And then also it will be followed by Dr. Oladejo from the Faculty of Education, University of Lagos, and the founder of EPNet to also speak. Dr. Amuni, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, sir. Please, can you hear me clearly?
We can hear you, sir.
Oh, thank you, sir. I want to thank Professor Adamu for that educative and informative lecture. We pray God to drink from your spring of wisdom more. And also, I want to thank Professor Tijani for providing this platform for us. I'd like to add
it's actually Professor Adamu that provided the platform. I'm just an appointee. It is legacy also.
Okay, we thank him for that. The effect of Arabic language, not only on Hausa, but on other Muslim languages. For example, I can see many of the words there in Hausa, also in Yoruba. And for example, Wala is also in Yoruba. And we may have taken it from either Hausa or Arabic, because Arabic also have a very good effect on Yoruba language. In fact, there's an aspect of study on Arabic loan words in Yoruba language. We want us also to look at this. I thank you for providing this platform, and I wish we continue on this note. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Oladejo, Unilag. Dr. Oladejo, I think I unmute you. Oladejo, go ahead and unmute, sir. Dr. Oladejo. You can unmute now. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Well, even though I have been passing some comments, charts, I still want to really, I could remember that when I did a book review in July, a prof turned out to also review the reviewer on that day. And by the way he presented today's paper, I have no doubt that Prof is a global scholar, and I really congratulate him on this. His manner of pronunciation of the words, his manner of presentation really carried me away. And I must also confess that maybe it was because Professor Adamu happens to be the presenter. The light has not gone since 10 a.m. in my place, because I used to put on Jane or use my phone to be on this program. But today, I am still having light now. So it shows that Prof is also a man of peace. So I congratulate Professor Adamu, and I also congratulate Professor Tijani. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Mrs. Ada Ozigbo, unmute yourself, ma. Let's take a lady.
Okay,
unmute
sir.
yourself. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Good morning, everyone. I just want to describe this presentation in one word. I want to say it's breathtaking. Well done, sir. I want to go straight to the point where you have the languages, how they kind of moved from what people used to say and how they were coined, how they were founded. You have in Igbo Wetammiri. I believe it should be Nyemmiri. Wetammiri is all right, but it says bring water. Nyemmiri says give me water. And if you're considering the onomatopic relation, you can see that Nyemmiri is more appropriate to use in that sense. So if we can just take note of that. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. We go for Dr. William, and then after Dr. John Okwaraduru. And then if you follow, Okwaraduru will be followed by Dr. Ade or Professor Adedapo. I can see him waving his hand. So you go after Dr. Johnson. Thank you. In that order, I think I have unmute all of you. Let me see you again. William. Okay, William, unmute, please. Dr. William.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Uba. Thank you for your presentation. I'm very interested in the topic because that topic is inviting. First and foremost, I had thought that with your presentation, I wanted to see you dragging us to the concept of intangible migrant, particularly in your introductory aspect of your presentation. I think that would have actually been captured by dragging us into it, looking at what intangible migrant or migration is all about, which is the main variable. And I'm also very interested in you also looking at issues or how these socialites lexicons has also become a challenge to migrants. I'd expected to see that too. And then I also crave your indulgence that to also take a look at editorial issues on the slide itself. Thank you. Wonderful presentation, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. William. Someone just asked that I should, the center should provide a copy of the lecture. Let me state that all lectures since we started in March are available. They are available. We usually send it on the WhatsApp group and the Telegram group. But more importantly, the video are also sent on these two platforms, but also on YouTube. So if you search on YouTube, you just put in CEMGS, you will see previous and even today. So in another 1 hour, you will get this particular video. And by the way, the PowerPoint is already posted, and that has been the tradition also. We will take 1 or 2 more, and then we'll allow Professor Adamu to respond. I don't think Dr. John is ready. Dr. Adedapo, you can go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My professor, I appreciate you for anchoring the program. At the same time, our Vice Chancellor and Professor. I also congratulate him too. I want to follow suit, to comment on his manner of a presentation. My first encounter with him was in 2010 when I was a participant in a workshop organized by the TED Fund. It was one of the facilitators then. The program was anchored by Professor.
We can't hear you, sir. Dr. Adedapo. I think we lost him. The signal is bad. We cannot hear you if you are hearing us. So I think you want to hold that thought. I'm just scrolling down to see if there's another person.
When it took to his time. So.
Okay. Dr. John, I think what I'll do, let me just go ahead and mute him. Professor Adamu, you may respond, sir, to those comments.
Okay. A lot of the comments made are very complimentary, and I would like to thank you very much for your kind comments and what I did. I forgot to declare at the very beginning that I am not two things that I always declare. Number one, I am not on this forum as a vice chancellor, but as an ordinary academician. And number two, I never present papers for people to agree with me. I present papers for people to disagree with me. I want you to provide counter argument. I believe in criticism and the growth of knowledge. Unless we criticize, knowledge will not go forward. I have been part of the vanguard of creating an atmosphere of free exchange. We don't want a situation where because somebody is a vice chancellor or a big professor or somebody intimidates people and people feel that they cannot challenge him. So go ahead and challenge what I say. Don't agree with me. Say you don't agree. And if you don't agree, you provide an alternative perspective. That is how we all move together and learn together. And so I would like to thank you very much, all the people who have made very, very nice and complimentary remarks on me. Back to Baba Sogolo, I'm leaving in 138 days from now. But that does not mean that, like Rosemary said, COVID is like more or less a blessing in disguise. That does not mean physically I will leave now, physically, but mentally I will still be part of this process unless I be removed. But so long as you use my au@yahoo.com, you'll get me. But I'm destroying, not just closing, destroying my NOUN email midnight on the 10th of February so that I don't receive any more NOUN messages. So, but the other points made are very, very beautiful because that is why we all now go and think about it. The guy from the University of Lagos is an Arabicist, but Professor Sogolo is saying that philosophy is not an Arabic word. Same thing with academia. Academia is not a Greek word. We all think in terms of that academic means it's Greek, it means university, the academy. It doesn't. Academia is based on a person, the name of one person. There's a garden like Tinubu Square or something like that. And people, Plato and all the other dead white philosophers just gather together there and make it their abode. So it becomes an academy simply because that's where he is. Just like Tinubu Square, you go to Tinubu Square and hang out, and then suddenly the place acquired a new name, Tinubu, and Tinubu now becomes part of English vocabulary for gathering or something like that. But it is contentious. I mean, there are a lot of arguments and counter arguments about the origin of things, but it's beautiful. Ganiat, I'm sorry, but I'm a staff of BUK, not a staff of NOUN. I don't have any letter that appoints me to NOUN on a particular salary scale or something like that. So I know you have been issuing this circular to me that I should stop calling BUK my home. Unfortunately, it is my home. NOUN is I'm a migrant in NOUN, just migrating. I'm just migrating in NOUN, and I'll be migrating back to where I come from. Rosemary, yes, Rosemary, I'll not be going away. I will be participating in these seminars if I'm allowed. I mean, if I get the circular, then I will definitely be there. Ada, thank you very much. Yes, actually, I wanted to write Inyam Miri and Banurwa, give me water. Yes, I consider myself partly Igbo because I lived in Igbo land for some time as a NYC person in Imo State. So I sort of like the language. And that's when I started digging into the roots of Inyamuri. That sounds like give me water. And then I discovered that, yes, Inyamuri means Inyam Miri, not Watem Miri. So thank you very much for that correction. I will effect it on the slide. Going back, somebody, Alabi talked about, can we go back to the roots? And the answer is no. Once you live forever. And that tied down to Professor Sogolo's comments. What about people who have been kicked out? If you have been kicked out, then you're not a migrant anyway. You are just a visitor. But if you're a migrant, you have every right to be there. Then you don't be kicked out. So, Tijani has a U.S. citizenship. Nobody kicked him out. He decided to come back to Nigeria so that he can go back to the U.S. anytime he likes. So he's not an immigrant. Once you can move in and out of a place, then you're not a migrant. For you to be a migrant, you have to stay permanently. That's why I said the language is an intangible migrant. And then finally, Amina Williams made general comments, and I like to thank you for your very kind comments. I think Lami Yaro is a linguist, and she also has been raising her hand, and the same thing with Amina.
Yes,
but there are so many people that will not be able to see them.
Yes, sir. Actually, I'm going to unmute Adedayo again. I hope he's audible. Lami Yaro, I have to mute her. I have to mute her because, but I will mute her also. And then lastly, I think Professor Uduma, who came in first today. So we're going to take it in that order. Okay. Dr. or Professor Adedapo, Dr. John Oparaduru, Dr. Lami Yaro.
Dr.
It's okay, sir. It's okay. You just assume that you know the person I'm talking about. So in that order, Adedapo, John, yes, Lami, and then Professor Uduma. Thank you very much. And I will mute all of you in that order. You got 10 seconds. Go ahead.
What I was saying before is that I was trying to follow suit by commenting on the manner of presentation.
We've had that part of you. Ask your question.
My question is that I wanted to ask, if not this ICT, how Professor was able to gather all this, because on a lighter note, he ran away from Lagos. So, because for the first time when I was in Abuja, I didn't know when they say Aboki is a friend. I was annoyed with one Hausa man. Again, they said, no. Okay, come. Aboki, now everybody was laughing. So I want to say that after his Professor tenure here, so another federal government appointment is waiting in Southwest. Please come so that we're able to explore everything. Thank you, sir. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm unmuting Mrs. Lillian Duru from the library. And Dr. John, are you still there? Are you ready for us? Dr. John to unmute. Those are the last two speakers before Professor Uduma speaks. I can't see any other hands. Please, you have to chat with me so that I can, if I can't see you, I'm so sorry, I'm using my iPad. So go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Prof, for this privilege. Our Vice Chancellor is a model. Of course, when we have been talking about the pattern of paper presentation, today's own is the pace setter, and he has proven to us the way to go. My contribution to the paper he presented is that where he actually listed the names of things, how they are called, he talked about CEMGS there, and of course there are some things he said there that have unique way of saying it also in Igbo. Like for instance, where he said that there is nothing they call a motor car. The way Igbo people call it obala. Motor car means obala. So I think by the time that thing is being put together, it will make the work.
Thank you, Dr. John. We are losing you. I think it's at the center. Dr. Duru, you can speak now, please.
Hello, it's not doctor yet. Good afternoon, everybody.
I just gave you doctor, don't worry.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Okay, so first of all, I apologize. I can't turn on my video because my baby is in the picture. So, but I would like to ask a question. There's a lot of sensitivity, movements, and this thing going on in the society now where there are issues of using derogatory words, such as, when they say someone is a half caste. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so we see those kind of issues where they say things like you can't say half caste anymore, or you can't use such words like abokis anymore, or you can't, considering like a lot of people think aboki is an insult, or saying, oh, Onyofe Manu, as Igbo people would tag Yoruba people and say Ofe Manu, so issues like that, or especially I see a lot of it on social media where people just say it out of knowing where it originated from, but nowadays it has become a sensitive issue. It has become a topic of maybe something really socially disturbing to say those things. My question is it possible, is there a way to make these findings more accessible to the layman on the street so that nobody takes offense at the fact that you use these words or you say these kind of things? Because really we live in Nigeria. It's a very rich cultural heritage that we have here, and the beauty of the nation actually lies in the fact that we're a diverse people. But these things are issues that are beginning to like seep into the so-called unity that we have, and it's something that can actually cause a fight on the streets just because you call somebody an aboki, or you say somebody is ofe manu, or you say, things like that. So how do we balance our knowledge of the fact that these things are historically rooted in our languages and not necessarily an issue that has to become a movement now? I hope I asked the question in a way that you understand.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We will take, before Professor Udama, I think Dr. Eric has been raising up his hand, so I don't want him to get query or I query him. Let him speak for just 10 seconds. Dr. Eric Omazu. And then Professor Uduma will be the last to speak. Go ahead, sir. Dr. Eric. Dr. Eric, you've been unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Yes, I express my appreciation for the opportunity to speak. I wanted to say something, but I think I also think that the last speaker touched at the heart of what I want to say, because I'm also interested in the process, or I mean the circumstances in which some of these words acquire their meaning outside their location. Like you have aboki meaning something else in the east, you have nyemiri meaning something else in the north. What are the processes, the conditions, the circumstances under which or in which they acquire these meanings that they bear in their new locations? And as the last speaker said, knowing this will also be important in knowing the words that have been adopted, the ones that should be said, and then the ones that should not be said. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We begin to re-engineer our education, particularly the informal education. Well, again, I'm so sorry. Professor Monday, I'm so sorry, sir, the guest presenter. There are some people that I cannot just ignore, even if I see them as we are rounding up. So Professor Monday's hand is being lowered and you are on mute. Please speak before Professor Udoma.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, the director, and I want to commend the Vice Chancellor for giving us this professorial fellowship lecture. And I must say that language, lexicon, idioms, expressions varies in various environments. And like the last speaker talked about, it's very important for us to understand the environment because, for example, the word shaggy, when somebody said shaggy, in some environment, like where I grew up in the northern part of the country in Zamfara State, shaggy is a word expressing that, oh, this guy has done well. Shaggy. But in another clime, the meaning means a bastard. Shaggy means a bastard in another environment. Like we're also talking about when we say that in the southeast, we are when we get to something that's okay, Onyausa. Some of these things have its own dimension, but some people will take it derogatory. But like you rightly said, it has to do with societal re-engineering. We have our informal approach in educating ourselves so that when we see those words, we should not look at it as derogatory, but as something that somebody is identified with you. In the Southwest, you hear some people, The word malam means a teacher. But because it is within that geopolitical dimension, it is now seen to be a derogatory term. Malami. But when you look at the epistemology of the word, malam means a teacher. Al-Majiri means a student. But when you have to, Al-Majiri is the word is a student. What is key is that we have to go back to our socio-cultural orientation and understand some of these dynamics for us to now see how we can educate our people and see how we can move on. This is the only way we can have diversity in our culture, and it's through our national diversity that we'll be able to have inclusiveness in whatever we do. Thank you so much for this presentation. I sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you very much, the Dean of Deans. We appreciate you, sir. And I think there's no doubt in the fact that this indeed is beyond even professorial fellow presentation. Is indeed a celebration of Nigeria at 60, because Nigerianism has really come full blown in another dimension, and we can take it up maybe on the WhatsApp group or on Telegram, group. At this point, I will yield to Professor Uduma to speak, and then we allow Professor Adamu to respond, and then we can go back to our various tasks. Thank you very much. Professor Uduma, you are off.
Thank you, Professor Tejani. Well, first and foremost, in the paper, I think a number of issues were really thrashed out. But the issue of identity, in this case, I think I would suggest that something is done to show the nexus between this and the issue of identity, because the issue of identity is something that is very, very important when we discuss most issues in Africa. Then, however, generally, I think the Vice Chancellor has given a lot of accolades for a wonderful presentation. And that is just because even though he denies it, he talks like a philosopher. And he knows he's a proper student. And in all his discussions, you see that what has made him excellent, what has made him distinct, is because he uses the tools of philosophy. And of course, he agrees, as philosophers do, that criticism is what gives rise to growth of knowledge. That shows that all these things is there about philosophy. Like I told him, several times I've told him that it's self-denial. But my dear Vice Chancellor, you've made so much impact today because you are a philosopher, and we want you to continue to think like a philosopher. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Uduma. Let me read something from a university, Federal University. I believe that should be Duse, Jigawa, and I believe that person is on the road, but he posted a comment here. He said, "Hello, sir. You are professor of science education, mass media, technology. So, sir, I want to ask what of Hausa language? Because I'm expected to be a professor in that area. Due to the fact that you are the one who interprets internet into Hausa, that is Yana Gizo Gizo, Kabiru Bashir Ringim, Federal University, Duse, Jigawa State." So I will yield to Professor Adamu to respond, and then we can round it up.
Okay, let me start with the last. I'm not an expert in Hausa language, because an expert in Hausa language is somebody who goes into the anatomy and physiology of a language. Like Larubashi is an expert in French. I think Lami also, or in other languages. I'm not really looking at Hausa language or its anatomy. I'm looking at cultural expressions. I'm looking at the relationship between media and culture. So my focus is not on phonology, morphology, semantics, or other structures of language. I'm only looking at the use of language in a particular social context, and particularly how media impacts on that. Yes, I created the term Gidagidan Sadarwa, or just internet for internet, but that is based on what it does, communication, rather than following the rules of grammar and things like that. Other comments that have been made, again, complimentary. I would like to thank you very much. I'm sorry we have extended beyond the time that we did. And I'm not sure that this is fair on the other presenters who Professor Tijani has been harassing. You have 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, and we have to close everything by 12 o'clock. We are getting almost one. And is this because it's the Vice Chancellor that is presenting, or Professor Adamu that is presenting, that you allowed it to just drag on and on? You're not being fair to the others who also want to do that. So in future, anybody who wants to do it, we allow them to talk so that we have free-form discussions. Anyway, but Monday's comments are, again, a further explanation of how idiolects, sociolects can have meaning in different contexts and societies. Like he said, Shege means an excellent. If I say Kai, Monday Shege, it means I'm really proud of Monday. But the word on is beneath the surface. So it's a post-structuralist perception. It deals with post-structuralism because it goes above the surface, above the structure to see at what it means. I like Dr. Lillian Duru's comment about this issue of how do we educate the layman on this. Let me be very frank with you, Lillian. Northerners are not really worried or insulted by the fact that Southerners call them Abuki. When you call somebody Abuki, it means a friend. And you can only somebody call a friend somebody that you really like. So for most Northerners, they're just amused that the Southerners think that calling somebody Abuki is an insult. This is not. I mean, if you call me Abuki, I'm fine. I'm Abuki. In fact, in Agege, there is a rap group called Be Merry Abuki. They domesticated the word, just like most American rappers domesticated the word nigger. Yeah, hey, yo, nigger, yo, my man, yo, nigger, and things like that. So that to show that it really doesn't mean anything. It doesn't hurt at all. I don't know what epemano or pemano means, whether it's an insult or not, but Abuki just simply means a friend, regardless of the context. Also, malam, like Mande said, when you say, oh, na malam, 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 most northern universities, it is prepared for you to call me Malam Abdallah than Professor Abdallah. So the northern professors actually prefer to be called Malam. Malam means Muallim, somebody who is learned. That is much more honorable than being called professor, because professor is seen as a foreign thing. But Malam is something that is domesticated. They even have their own professorial level. Tangogo, Gangarang, these are all professors in the Islamic tradition. So when you say I'm a Malam, that's fantastic. I am a Malam. It's an honor to be called a Malam. So Lillian, I don't know how we are going to do it, but we need to get involved in the social media and point out that you think that you are insulting Northerners by calling them Aboki or not. They're actually happy that you are calling them Aboki. So once you take out the bite out of it, then people start using it in a derogatory manner. You could say, oh, never mind, don't mind this useless man. That's okay. But if you say, don't mind this useless Aboki, then you are now giving it a different weight, a different emphasis. And that weight and emphasis mean that you are dealing with it from a particular perspective of prejudice and things like that. So I would like to thank everyone who has commented. I would take a look at the paper again, like somebody suggested that there are a lot of typographical errors. I'm not going to go into all this business of saying, oh, I finished the paper at 1 o'clock or something like that. Yes, I noted there are some few things here and I will tighten them up as much as I can. I wish Lami Yaro actually had a chance to talk, because I've never had a talk throughout.
I can't find Lami Yaro, sir.
She has disappeared, maybe. That's okay. So thank you very much for all your comments and observations.
Thank you very much, sir. Usually our professorial presentation, we go beyond the usual time. That is why we allow. But I thank you. I take note of that, and we'll do justice. I thank each and every one of you. Unfortunately, Dr. Lami Yaro is no longer with us. So thank you very much, and we look forward to receiving your papers, to sharing with us your knowledge, and as you can see being projected, we are ready to rock. Thank you, stay blessed, and I will unmute everyone. Okay, thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.